Are you ready for a real game changer?
Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. This is episode 35. Today we have another of our timely treats for you guys. This is the new Bosch Biturbo PROFACTOR, which is the latest high torque cordless on the market and came out within the last week. Bosch has been pumping up the PROFACTOR name with all types of marketing this past year, but this is our first chance on the channel to dive into any of it and see if it's all a load of marketing malarkey or if there's actually some beans behind the blabbering. This episode is brought to you by you guys. New tools are 100% paid for by us. We don't accept free tool gifts, paid reviews, or samples from brands. We won't be making a Patreon, but if you want to actually get something for your money, we did just open up a t-shirt and hoodie shop, and you can see that in the link in the description below. 3 different designs so far, including classic bolt expectations, cordless impact bolt expectations, and our own parts schematic with SAE Ugga Dugga figures, and super helpful notes. We try to keep prices as low as possible on these, and they're only available in dark colors because we see these as sort of fun work shirts and hoodies. While this tool is all new to us and likely you, its specs are a bit familiar. The GDS18V-740N claims 740 foot-pounds fastening and 1180 foot-pounds breakaway. That should sound familiar to you because on our last high torque video, only a week ago we tested Makita, which also advertises 740 and 1180. Quite the coincidence, but if those numbers seem oddly specific, they are basically 1000 newton meters and 1600 newton meters converted to foot-pounds. And these are not US-based companies, so that makes some sense. That coincidence gives us the opportunity to see if it matches the power of that Makita, given the specs are besties, and we'll also be comparing the new PROFACTOR's torque output against the Flex, because that's the most recent high torque before this debuted, and the M18 Milwaukee, because it's still ranked number 1 cordless as far as we're concerned, and number 3 overall on our rank list. One ace the PROFACTOR has up its sleeve and standing up to these names, and heck, let's just call it what it is, Bosch be straight cheatin', is the fact that according to them, this tool is only compatible with their 8 amp hour and 12 amp hour quote-unquote PROFACTOR batteries. Nothing else is listed. According to Bosch, PROFACTOR models such as this one are specifically optimized with in-tool electronics to take advantage of the 8 amp hour and 12 amp hour PROFACTOR batteries specifically. And since on this channel we traditionally only test our main matchups with what's provided in the brand's kits, and this tool isn't sold in any kit, but is only pictured by Bosch with this 8 amp hour battery and listed as compatible with only the 8 and 12. We brought this pricey 8 amp hour pack, which if you're not familiar with Bosch's batteries, are the special sauce 21700 cell size, like the rest of their core packs, which makes this essentially an M18 XC 8.0 or a DeWalt XR 8 amp hour. But as it turns out, ours didn't even show up with the PROFACTOR naming on it, and looking more into it, the GDS18V-740N part number for this battery predates PROFACTOR tools, so looks like it's just a new label on their normal 8 amp hour pack. Which, if is the case, you can find these for around $90 to $100 and not have to spend the $150 we did trying to get the new sticky label. Since we can already feel the comment section fuming about this turn of events, we also purchased Bosch's standard core 4 amp hour pack, which is also 21700 cells. So kudos to them for making the standard batteries in those 21700s, something Cobalt XTR sort of does with their 4 amp hour packs, and Flex, who's made by the same company, really could have and maybe should have done out the gates. We'll be testing both of these battery types here, which feature these neat looking cooling fins, to get an idea of where they stack up against the competition. Then at the end of this episode, we'll be ranking sort of both versions on our rank chart and leaving it up to you guys which one stays. As a reminder, on this channel, we're all about testing versus the specs on the box. On the Heart episode, we used the battery they said was required to hit their numbers. And when sold in kits, we use what comes in the kit with the numbers on that box. And if Bosch claims their specs are only with an 8 amp hour battery, we gotta take a look and see, even if it seems like they found some wiggle room in our rule book. With the 8 amp hour attached, the Bosch is definitely a tall one, but at 8.7 inches long, it's one of the shorter high torques we've tested and near the same as our Flex at 8.74 inches long. With that 8 amp hour attached, it also weighs less than the Flex 2, but the same as a Harbor Freight, so we're not talking like super light here. We have a lot of testing to get into though, so instead of diving into what PROFACTOR or biturbo actually mean and other marketing jargon, let's get into it and see what it can do. Our first test is called working torque. This is 5 seconds and forward. Here's how M18, Makita, and Flex did. And here's a Bosch PROFACTOR with a standard 4 amp hour core battery, which they do not recommend. That's 1 foot-pound more than the Flex, so essentially a wash there, but both well behind the Makita and M18, which as we know hit super hard and forward. Now here's the PROFACTOR using the 8 amp hour battery Bosch rates the tool with. So that's 499 versus 485. Some early gains on the curve from harder hits, but nothing to write home about in the end. Our next test is called max torque. It's 10 seconds in reverse. Here's the 4 amp hour core 18 volt versus the rest of the impacts on screen. So that's 588 covering up the Flex's run here because it made the same 588 exactly. So far the two tools with these batteries are interchangeable down to the foot-pound. Let's see if these longer tests with 8 amp hour battery is able to supply that extra punch Bosch advertises the PROFACTOR tools are so customized for. Well, yeah, I'd say so. The 8 amp hour battery took this tool from a Flex to nearly an M18 in this test. And in the first 5 seconds or so, the PROFACTOR actually shows some gains on that Milwaukee, indicating it's hitting harder per blow. That difference of 17% is much more than the gains we saw in episode 18 with high output batteries, seeing really good gaps on the curve as well, but more like a 6% total increase. And this curve isn't flattening out either. It's ready to make more power. With that added power from the 8 amp hour pack comes some extra wrist braking action, but nothing like the M18 high torque, which we awarded a 7.5 out of 10. And the Makita, our highest rated ever at 9.0 because it basically tries to take your lunch money each time you pull the trigger. And that Flex got our lowest rating of a 5.0 with its shock shield Hitachi vibrating action. This PROFACTOR gets a 6.5, being quite manageable, similar jumbling around to the M18, just to a lesser degree, and more noticeable as the tests go on and the bolts get tighter. So let's see the super tightened bolt on our third test called best case scenario. 15 seconds in reverse this time, battery's fresh off the charger. Here's a 4 amp hour core battery from the PROFACTOR. In a BCS test, the Bosch definitely shines, making the second most torque we've ever gotten out of a cordless with a battery Bosch says is not compatible with the tool, putting some gap but taking a while to do so even on the Makita here. Now let's check out the 8 amp hour Bosch says is the bare minimum for this tool in its best case scenario test. Wowza, a cordless tool finally actually toppling the M18 for the first time on any test on this channel. That's 793 versus 778. Super similar power curves as well. And if you're saying that's not fair, the Bosch is basically using a double stack high output, you're not completely wrong, but we've long felt Milwaukee should be packaging the 2767 with an XE 6.0 if they want to get closer to their sky high specs. Here we have a tool advertising 1180 making a little bit more than a tool that advertises 1,400. But if you're curious, we do have a run with the M18 high torque and a high output battery, so this is how that stacks up. This is the 2767 with an HD 12.0 battery. When we borrowed this high torque, we didn't own the other high output batteries quite yet. So the Milwaukee is able to put 8 foot-pounds on the PROFACTOR with that 12 amp hour triple stack $250 21700 cell battery. But considering how much this Bosch picked up going from the 4 amp hour to 8 amp hour compared to the effect it has on Milwaukee, we're actually willing to buy the load of marketing speak Bosch is putting out about this tool. It may actually be tailored to their 8 amp hour and 12 amp hour batteries, which maybe Milwaukee didn't really have an opportunity to do because this 2767 is quite some years old before high output was really a thing, which makes us definitely want to try out this Bosch with a 12 amp hour battery. So if you own one of those and want to see it, let us know. For now, let's see how both versions of the PROFACTOR fall on our rank chart. For the minute, these are starting at the bottom of our list. Now, before we total these up, I want you to go down into the comment section and upvote the comment we've posted for which version of this tool should stay on the rank list. I understand everyone has their own brand allegiances, but keep in mind this could have an impact on your brands that you love in the future if they make a tool sold only by itself and we have to choose a battery for it. The heavier 8 amp hour version is on top and the power runs are recorded here. That's 50, 71, and 79 for the 8 amp hour PROFACTOR and 49, 59, and 72 for the 4 amp hour. Big gains on the max test there. At 8.7 inches long, which is not terrible for cordless in this category. That's a quite high 91.2 and a lower for the 4 amp hour battery, making less beans with 82.4 foot-pounds per inch. For torque claim, both of these tools get our max of 100 points or 100%. Bosch says it makes 740 tightening with an 8 amp hour battery according to them, and it does that plain and simple, making this tool the first high torque we've seen tested that's actually underrated. We have an underrated tool on this channel, boys, and it's actually getting the points for it too. At $249, the PROFACTOR costs the same as the Milwaukee high torque originally, but also made some power for sure, so it gets decent marks in the form of 47.8 and 43.2 points. That totals a huge 439 and 405.6, currently placing this tool into third place, knocking down the reigning champ Milwaukee, or it could put it in what would be otherwise sixth place, right below the Matco Monster Gun. On future episodes, it will only be listed once here, with a note about its other score in this column. You guys decide which version stays below. Either way, this is either currently the first or second highest scoring cordless we've tested to date. It's worth mentioning that for the 4 amp hour battery we bought, it's a Bosch starter kit that comes with a charger. We'll put a part number in the description. These can be found for $70 to $100, making this tool kit not too bad considering you have to buy it piecemeal. And even with an 8 amp hour battery, since you don't need a PROFACTOR sticker on yours, you can just pick up any GDS18V-740N as we've shown today for around $90 to $100. We have a few more high torques on our list before this series is wrapped up, unless there are new introductions to the market like Ryobi's. In order to not miss out on those, subscribe, click like to please the YouTube machine, and thanks as always for watching.